adding and subtracting fractions. I've got 3 examples that I'm going to go through in this video, but I wonder if you can spot what's different about each one and why I've decided to separate them like I have. Well, let's have a closer look at the first one. 2/11 plus 5/11. Here the denominators are the same, and when we add or subtract fractions we want the denominators to be the same. So here this one is quite straightforward. 2/11 plus 5/11 makes 7/11. Of course it does. 2/11 plus 5/11 equals 7/11. The denominator remains unchanged, and we find the sum of the numerator. Let's have a look at the second one. Oh, look, it's slightly different. 3/4 minus 1/2. Well, now the denominators are different. So what we need to do is use equivalent fractions, so fractions that have the same value, but we want to make the denominators the same. And we do that by finding the lowest common denominator. So let's go back to ours. We have 3/4 and we have 1/2. And we're trying to find a common denominator. Not just any. To make life easier, we're going to find the lowest common denominator. So we'll look at multiples of 4 and multiples of 2 and see if we can find a common number in those lists. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 and so on. Let's do 2. 2, 4, 8, I missed out 6. Did you notice that? 6, 10, 12 and so on. Well, what have we got in common here? Hey look, 4's in common, 8's in common, 12 is in common. But what's the lowest common? Well, the lowest common in this example is 4. Now, did you spot this when we went through my 3 examples when we first saw them? That if I'm going to do 3/4 minus 1/2, the 2 is a factor of 4, or we could say 4 is a multiple of 2. So this one doesn't need to change. So here I can write 3/4 minus something over 4. How many quarters is the same as 1/2? Well, if we're looking at equivalent fractions, I can say that 2/4 is the same as 1/2. They have the same value. And now I can work this out. 3/4 minus 2/4 equals 1/4. Remember, the denominator remains unchanged. 3/4 minus 2/4 equals 1/4. Great, that's 2 of our 3 examples done already. First one, the second one, and now the third one. So what's different about this? Well, look at the denominators. 4 is not a factor of 6, and 6 is not a multiple of 4. So we're going to have to look for a common multiple of 6 and 4, and then find an equivalent fraction for 5/6 and an equivalent fraction for 3/4 as well. Let's do that now. We're going to try and find the lowest common denominator for the pair of fractions 5/6 and 3/4. Now if we can find the lowest common denominator, it makes life a lot easier. We're dealing with smaller numbers if we do that. So let's look at the 6 times table. Multiples of 6, 6, 12, I'll try not to miss any out this time, 18, 24, 30, there we go. Let's do the 4 times table, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Hey, look, actually, I'll write the next one as well, just to show you something. You see, 24 is in both lists, and 6 times 4 is 24. But it's not the lowest. The lowest common multiple is 12. So I'm going to make each one of these fractions out of 12. So 5/6. What's the equivalent fraction to 5/6? What fraction has the same value as 5/6, but its denominator is 12? Well, that one is 10. 10/12 has the same value as 5/6. What about 3/4? We need an equivalent fraction that's out of 12. 3/4 is the same as 9/12. If you're not sure about equivalent fractions, check out my equivalent fractions video on this channel. Once the denominators are the same, we can complete the subtraction. 10/12 minus 9/12 equals 1/12. So that's the answer. So there you have it. We have 3 different examples of adding and subtracting fractions. So we summarize by writing down the answers. This one, the denominators are already the same. 2 plus 5 is 7. 2/11 plus 5/11 equals 7/11. This one, 3/4 minus 1/2. We had to find an equivalent fraction, but only for this one, because 2 goes into 4, and 4 is a multiple of 2. And their answer for this one was 1/4. And in the third example, they both have different denominators, and 6 is not a multiple of 4, and 4 does not go into 6 without any remainder there. So we had to change both fractions using equivalent fractions, and our final answer was 1/12.